Hey guys, what's happening? Willie here at the Great Outdoors. I got on my Richard Miller. How y'all feel about this? I'm gonna tell you what, it's a comfortable hat, and Richard Miller, wherever you are, thank you for this. This is an incredibly comfortable hat. I'm looking forward to getting this one out there fishing. Man, love this thing. Or just walking in the woods with it. It's light, feels nice on my head. I love this hat. Thank you, Richard Miller. Thank you. Anyway, why are we here today? Well, first off, I've been off. I did not get a video out last Wednesday because of the weather. Here we go again with that weather thing. Willie, you always start off one of your videos with the weather. Why? Well, it just seems like the natural thing to do because the weather is what prevents me from doing a whole lot of things I want to do. Here recently, part of my prevention of being able to put a video out is the weather that has been bad all over the south, really, from the south all the way to, I don't know, southeast a little bit. Needless to say, in Virginia, we got hit with ice and snow, extremely cold temperatures. This morning when I went to work, it was 12 degrees. Now, in Virginia here, we don't see that. That's not something that normally happens here. So that's bad news for us. I also work for a public utility, and that public utility happens to keep you warm. I can't mention names and all that kind of stuff, but we keep you warm and keep you cooking and keep your water hot. That's us. So you can imagine when the temperature drops around here, everybody and their mother has their hot water running, their heat on and cooking, and you name it, fire logs. Ooh, I may have just spoke out of turn there. Regardless, I've had to be up early every morning. For the last 3 mornings, I had to be up at 4 a.m. and at work. So that means getting up at 3 a.m. to get to work by 4 a.m. to work a full 8 hours and then more if necessary. So needless to say, I've been tired. When I get home, I am tired. I was getting a shower, eating my dinner, sitting down in the old recliner, getting through about 20 minutes of a video on YouTube, and the next thing you know, I was asleep. That's right. So I'm sorry I didn't get a video out on Wednesday. But for the video that you're about to watch, you have to thank another, or I guess I should have to thank another YouTuber, fellow YouTuber, who's a whole lot further up the old totem pole than I am when it comes to the world of fishing. And that would be Richard Gene, the Fishing Machine. Now, I don't know if you guys have watched him or not. If you haven't, watch him. Extremely entertaining fella and very, very knowledgeable on how to catch crappie and bluegill and things like that. And that happened to be what I was watching. Well, during this particular episode, old Richard Gene was using a reel that I never thought he would use, but he does tend to use some older things every so often. And when he started using this reel, I was just baffled because I have never seen anybody other than me use one of these guys on YouTube. Now, maybe I haven't gone terrible in depth with it or anything, but it was kind of cool to see. Now, that reel was on a 9-foot rod, and he was crappie fishing from the bank. Which, who does that remind you of? No, not that guy. Who else does it remind you of? Not that guy either. Who else does it me! It reminded me of me. It reminded me, it should remind you of me. There's things that remind me of you. I mean, the one thing that I remember most about you is how easy it is to forget the things that remind me of you. Anyway, what I'm getting at, he was using a Johnson Model 80 Sidewinder. That's right, a Model 80 Sidewinder. Look at this beautiful box right here. Isn't that cool? Now, we all know that I like the Sidewinder. I've used it on a couple of occasions. Now, those of you who don't know, the Sidewinder came into play in the late 1940s when old Lloyd Johnson decided to build the Model 10. Now, from that Model 10, of course, we know how Johnson was. You could get an A, B, C, D, and E, and F if you really thought hard about it on every model known to man. Well, from the 10 all the way to the 80, you had everything from the 22, the 44, the 60, you name it, there was a bunch of Sidewinders in between. But when you got to the Model 80, that seemed to be where it ended. It ended at the 80. It's that simple. I'm just going to put it to you just like that. The Sidewinder for Johnson ended with the Model 80. Why? Well, simple. It was the best one. And not to mention, after that came out the Model 100, which was no longer the Sidewinder. No, it was your typical spin cast style reel. Now, not to get too confused or too welled up, because it can bring me to tears. I get a little emotional about things like that. When things end and new things come in. It can make you shake you up, okay? Sorry, I didn't mean to get so loud about it. But anyway, the Model 80, this guy right here, I know, it looks plain. It's just like a green round thing, right? I know. Until you turn it around here. Look at that. You got your crank arm, you got your push button there, your release. Then you got a drag right up in there. It looks like a little bicycle gear around the crank arm there. You got your clicker mechanism. Where you at, clicker? There you are. You can get a little clicker lever. Now, the one thing that the 80 doesn't have is an anti-reverse, which I found amusing that he was, Richard Gene, was using this reel to catch crappie jigging from the bank, casting out about 10, 12 feet and letting it drop and jigging with it. Well, when you don't have an anti-reverse, you have to get creative with how you get jiggy with it. He was locking his fingers around the line while he was jigging with that rod, and it was pretty amusing to watch. Now, I've never done any kind of jig type thing with the Model 80. Most of it's been casting, and the baits that I use, being the Charlie Brewers, having a little action with the paddle tail, that's mostly what I use. Always keeping my hand on the crank lever just in case something hits, so when I set the hook, it doesn't take off like, you know, and next thing you know, you've backlashed everything, there's a mess of line inside, all that fun stuff. But then after thinking about it for a little while, it had dawned on me that I have never really done a teardown on a Sidewinder. Anyway, I figured what we need to do is, since I've never really done it, we've never had a teardown of a Model 80. Let's get you down to the table, take a look inside this old Model 80, and see what's in there. Give me a bowl. That's all I need is a bowl. I need a bowl. We'll go with this big bowl right here. What's that? What is all that? Now, like I said, I do have two of these Model 80s. And the reason I have two of them is because of, isn't that beautiful inside of there? Dan Selvig and Gary Barber. If it wasn't for those guys, I wouldn't have two of them. Look at the size of that rotor. Now, you've seen what I did. That's just got your nut right up on top of the rotor there. And that is a big old rotor right there. Now, this one we definitely ain't gonna have to clean, because Gary and Dan sent me two reels that were in incredible shape inside. So this is really just for you guys to get a good look at what's in there. You have your typical slide. Now this has a, what I like to call the leaf spring style spring in there, except this one is a wire. It's not a flat band of brass or copper. Rotor is rolled to the inside there, keep from tearing your line up. That's pretty neat. All right, then you have your little C-clip with the finger piece here. You can actually get your thumbnail on there and just pop that C-clip out of there. That's what holds your spool down. Drag's loosened up, spool falls right out. So you got your center section there. Now you go around to the back side here and you'll notice you have two screws on the back there. A screw right there. There you go. That is pretty darn cool, I have to say. So cool seeing the inside of this stuff. Especially this one, because I've never really taken it apart. All right. There's your button and your pinion gear. Probably should have done this first. Take that little acorn nut off there. That in here. Take the crank arm off like that. And we just unscrew this gear off of here. It looks like a gear anyway, but it's really not. And there you go. I'm taking everything apart just for you guys. All right, you see that there's a copper washer. It's on the inside of this friction drag piece, the plastic piece here. And there you go. That is how that works. So now we're going to go ahead and put her back together. There's some kind of washer in there too I'm not seeing. Let's set this down just a second. Oh, it is. Okay. So there you go. That's how your gear comes apart. That's the inside of your gear. Okay, so what's actually happening here is when you tighten down on your drag, it's pushing the gear against that little brass washer there. Now you have a flat side in here. That flat side is going to fit for that flat side at the bottom there. And I'm sorry I don't know the technical names of all this stuff for you guys. I wish I did. Now let's put that back on. Come on, flat side, where are you? Because there's a flat side on here too. And I just got to figure out where it's at. Oh, there it is. I got it now. Okay. Now we're going to go back inside here. Then we're going to get our little drag gear. We're going to screw that back on, catch it. Now we're quickly going to look at this pinion. Now this is kind of unique. See how that works? You got a spring, your pinion gear, and then your button. None of this comes apart. This is factory pressed in. So if that gear, if that pinion gear, like Johnson has a tendency to do, you know, if that pinion gear goes bad, you basically have to buy this entire shindig here, because you see that pin in the bottom there, it's pressed in. And my guess is that you would have to press it out through that hole, pop that loose to get that gear off. And I wouldn't say that that's something that you, as the I guess the buyer of this particular reel, or the home DIY, I guess the do-it-yourself kind of guy like myself, I don't think that we would be doing that. I think you have to buy that entire part. So that's pretty nifty, but could have been the downfall of the Model 80. That goes in there like that. Got to line everything up. Now I know y'all can't see what I'm doing, but there we go. Okay, everything's lined up. If you take a good look at that when you go to if you go to put it back together yourself, you will notice how all of that goes back in there. Okay, we will now take our little screws and put them back. All right, now what we're going to do, spool. Spool clicks into place. You'll see there's a hole right there where there's a little nub sticking through the bottom. That hole lines up with that. You got your slide pin, your little C-clip, slide clip there. Slide that into place, lock her in. Then, rotor. Then you can put your nut back on there. Get back on there. I lined you up just right. There we go. Now we can go back with the crank arm. Got your acorn nut. Make sure everything's moving like it should. We're all doing what we should be doing. Tighten that down a little bit. Then we can screw our cat back on. Doing the thing. I tell you, man, doing the thing. I just cleaning these things up, wiping them down, getting them working like they should. Even though this one, technically, it was fine. There was nothing wrong with it. Again, both of the reels that I got, one was from Gary and one was from Dan, were both done. I didn't have to do anything to them. So, you know, there was no cleaning involved really with this one anyway. Now this is the one that I got from Gary that I have not dropped. I say that now, and I'm probably going to bounce it off the table and try to catch it and then throw it through the glass door over there and all that stuff. But there you go. There is me almost dropping it. Johnson Model 80 Sidewinder. A very cool, very different little reel. You can see where the beginning and the end, well, you can see where the end anyway. this reel works well. I have to thank 3 people, Gary, Dan, and Richard Jean, the fishing machine. Because Richard Jean was using one of these the other day and it gave me the idea, and I was like, you know what? I've used this reel. I have video out on using a Johnson Sidewinder, but I have never taken one apart for you guys so you could see what it looked like inside, because it is a different setup. It's very different. So thank you, Richard Jean, for giving me an idea. He'll never see this, I'm sure, because he's too far up the totem pole to be worried about old Willie down here. But very cool reel. If you get the chance and you find one of these, again, even in somewhat okay shape, you need to get it, because they're fun. They're at least fun to try. Don't pay a lot of money. I mean, don't pay like, you know, I want $175 for this thing. No, don't do that. But if you find one, you'll have fun using it. Trust me, you will. I got video out of me fishing with these guys. If you want to see what it's like fishing with one, I do intend to take this one out this year because I haven't used this one yet. I just used the other one that I got from Dan, and that's the one that I dropped. I'd also like to thank Richard Miller. That's where this hat came from, Richard Miller. Actually, it came from the antique store, but it was Richard Miller's. And when I was doing the video with Richard Jean coming up with this, I figured it would be nice to have Richard Miller's hat on as well. That's right, I don't consider it my hat. I'm just borrowing Richard Miller's hat. And I hope Richard Miller's happy with what I've done with it. But anyway, thank you guys for watching. Hope you enjoyed that. Sorry about the delay in videos, but I was doing a whole lot of that conveyor belt of domestic life of get up, go to work all day, come home, eat dinner, take a shower, go to bed, do it all over again. Things have slowed down now. The temperatures are starting to rise back up a little bit and things are going a little bit better now. So thank you guys for watching. We'll see you on the next one. Whatever the next one may be. That really worked quite well. I wasn't expecting that to spin that far like that. Boo, look at this. Pee-wee, come here. Y'all ain't gonna believe how much this thing spins.